Someone said at the start, before we sat down, I see we have the Cork Mafia here today with John and myself. As Tina said, you can tell that I'm not from Ireland, and hopefully at the end of this presentation, you can see how a Cork business has taken the opportunity to expand. What I want to do over the next 10 to 15 minutes is really talk to you about how Musgrave is using its sustainability agenda to really work through this recession and come out of it with a stronger and better business, not just for ourselves, but also our retail partners. I always seem to have to start off a presentation like this explaining who we are. We often get called the cash and carry in Ballymun, a wholesaler, an international retailer. And in fact, my best experience was just recently when we had the Royal Tour and I was introduced to the President and the Royal Party. And when I explained that I was representing Musgrave, before I'd even finished, Prince Philip said, with a name like that, you sound like a firm of undertakers. And then I went on to explain, well, actually, in Britain, we support brands like Londis and Budgeons. And he said, well, why didn't you say that? And that really goes to the heart of Musgrave. Musgrave supports 12 brands across the UK, Ireland, and Spain. Between ourselves and our retailers, we employ over 50,000 people, 30,000 here in Ireland. And you'd recognise us through brands such as SuperValu Centra, Daybreak Marketplace, and with the recent addition of Superquinn over the last couple of days. Our turnover is in the region of 5 billion, and what's important for us in our way of doing business is that we're there supporting brands working with the consumer, so we have a business-to-consumer relationship, but also our retailers own their own stores. We pride ourselves on the fact that our retailers are entrepreneurs, are based in the local community. And it's that independence that means that our relationship is a business-to-business relationship with our retailers. For our retailers, they need to have sustainable brands. It's their lifeblood of what they do. There are certain characteristics that sit behind all of our brands, whether they be SuperValu Centra, Budgeons in Great Britain, or the Alprix in Spain. We focus on the local retailer, but we expect them to be community-based. We know that fresh is a key component of successful food retailing. And we also want to ensure that they do support local sourcing. And in doing that, we need them to be entrepreneurial and innovative. Our partnership is that we work with those retailers to shape the brands. We don't have a hard franchise. We work on the basis that through our working together, our relationship determines how those brands fit in the marketplace. So our sustainability agenda is really around three key components. For our consumers, it's about having brands that make their lives easier. For our retailers, for them to be successful, our sustainability policy is about them being a good neighbour in the communities in which they live. And for Musgrave, about having a relationship with our retailer, which is done by living our values. If you look on the left-hand side of the chart, you'll see a piece of work that we've just completed with our brand partner, Interbrand. And what that shows, if you can read it, is that actually there is no winner in the sustainability agenda as far as the consumer is concerned. You go from the positive greens to the waste watchers. There is no one dominant segment. What's key, though, is that the way the consumer has changed over the recent past is that they've moved from sustainability being an aspiration to seeing that sustainability has to help them in meeting the difficult needs that they're facing at the moment. So how have we used our sustainability agenda in terms of facing into the recession? I'm not going to bore you with masses of corporate lingo, but all I'm going to say is that having completed a major review in 2009, actually with the support of KPMG, we went back to our business and said, we fundamentally have to relook at how we're supporting our brands. And in doing that, we took the opportunity to refocus and see how we could leverage our ways of working across the group. That enforced us to look at how our brands were profitable, the use of technology, how we worked with our suppliers, but more importantly, how we worked together, not just with our retailers, but with our consumers and all our stakeholders such as suppliers. What that's meant over the last 3 years is a business that's been able to stabilise profit after having taken a major hit in 2008, having seen our profit move back from over 90 million. But we've also been able to really muster our resources and work on cash generation. So as we sit today, we believe that we're in a stronger position coming out of the recession with a leaner and fitter business. We do have to work on incredibly low margins. Our net margin after tax is 1.1%. And it's because of that that we have to really focus on our working relationship. Our relationship is about getting it right for the consumer. We would have said a year ago that the consumer was absolutely focused on price. And then we would have said, but their values are very important. As we sit today, and we're technically coming out of recession, we know that the domestic economy is extremely tough. And what we see in the consumer is a move to a modest shopping. It's about a new austerity where for the consumer it is about price, but it's also about helping them manage to a strict budget. It's about resisting food waste and avoiding unnecessary discretionary spend. Values, though, are still important. And what's important for the consumer going forward is that in this new austerity, we have to acknowledge that there are many uncertainties and hazards ahead. I'm not going to read the chart in full, but we all know what they are. They range from sovereign debt to the austerity programs that governments are clearly pursuing, right through to environmental and social issues. So what are we doing to help our consumers' lives better? The first issue is clearly price. It's driving every consideration in the marketplace. Through our changes of ways of working, we've been able to bring down the average trolley price in SuperValu from €150 to €102. We've done that through refocusing our business, working on price cuts which are now permanent. The market has shifted from how do I save to just help me spend less. The use of technology is very important in enabling consumers to really limit their budget. And what we're seeing now is a considerable shift to own brand. For some of our brands, we're now seeing own brand at over 40% participation. What we've done with Musgrave is really refocus our own brand. We're taking our SuperValu own brand, we're launching it into Britain behind our Budgens and Londis brands, and we see that business moving from about 700 million to $1 billion in 2014. A real opportunity for Irish suppliers. In getting those sorts of price cuts, we've had to fundamentally change what we're doing. As Ireland, we have to acknowledge that we are a small market when compared to the UK. The Irish grocery market is worth about 14 billion. The UK grocery market is worth about 160 billion. For a lot of the products that we sell behind our brands, 60–70% is from major international brands such as Nestlé, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, and so on. They are now refocusing their supply chain and the way that they support the Irish grocery market. We've had to adapt. We've had to change our supply chain. We've had to close various warehouses, and we've had to look at how we utilize our supply chain across the two islands. That's where our sustainability agenda has really helped us, not just in doing the right thing, but also in taking cost out. We're implementing lean programs in terms of really attacking our processes, which are enabling us to get to market quicker. Again, that's about working hand in glove with our suppliers. And what we've actually achieved over the last 2 years is a reduction in our operating costs of about 80 million out of 450 million over the last 2 years. But it's fair to say that we've done a lot, but there's a lot to do. If we look at the price difference, say, between SuperValu in ROI and SuperValu in Northern Ireland, in 2009, in January, the price difference was 34%, a lot of which was driven by the shift in the exchange rate. As we sit today, that price difference is 10%. It's still significant. And what sits behind that is a price difference that's driven by 3% from excise and VAT, and 7% because of the higher cost of doing business here in Ireland. We just need to think about wage structures. We need to think about issues such as our property and the fact that we have only upward-only rent reviews. These are structural issues that we have yet to get to grips with, which will need to be changed in order to bring further value to the Irish consumer. The other aspect, though, in helping consumers to live better is very much around delivering on our sustainability agenda that helps them. So if we think about home delivery, we have the most extensive home delivery network through our retailers in this country. The fact is, most people are seeing the price of fuel as being prohibitive. They now have to consider even getting into the car, let alone driving to the shop. Home delivery is a key component of being able to satisfy their needs. Clearly, the requirement for healthier options. technology in managing the shopping list, but also in thinking about the challenge of price and the issue of diet, then managing protein is a key requirement. And then we move on to issues such as food waste, where there is a strong recognition that by managing food waste, I can really reduce my grocery bill. I now want to reflect on our retailers who are there in their local community. They are the local employer, they do source locally, and they also employ locally. The reality for those retailers is that they need to do the right thing in their communities, and they need to be a good neighbour. They work in the communities, and we support them through major programs such as the Supplier Development Programme run through SuperValue, but also in enabling them to take an active part through our support of Tidy Towns and GAA. And clearly what's also important, and a growing shift, is the support of Irish. We've seen many flag wavings over the last few years, but what's really coming together now is the recognition from the Irish consumer that if they do purchase local product, they are supporting local jobs. We have an environmental policy which is very much around challenging our sustainability, but it really goes to the heart of managing costs. What we've been doing is really driving hard on our targets. We've taken 2.4 million kilometres off the road. We're recycling waste. And through our operations, in terms of our warehouses and offices, we've made sizable reductions in building emissions and carbon footprint. All of these are about being a good neighbour, but also enabling us to take cost out and reinvest into price. In terms of supporting Ireland, Musgrave is probably making the most significant investment, not just in the grocery sector, but also in the whole economy. We and our retailers will invest over 300 million in Ireland this year. We're doing that through new stores. If you take, for instance, Emmett McConville in Mount Mellick, you take Centra stores, Daybreak stores, there are new openings on the way. Our retailers are revamping so that they're there in order to actually have stronger businesses coming out of the recession. And clearly with an international business like ours, we are looking at streamlining systems and supply chain. The major acquisition, though, has been Superquinn. Through acquiring Superquinn at a price of just over 200 million, we are able to support over 2,800 jobs. And we're also able to ensure continuity of supply for all the local suppliers who support Superquinn. That's a major change and a major opportunity in terms of supporting an iconic Irish business. In terms of Musgrave, Musgrave itself has a way of working which is defined by its values. We are an Irish family business. We've been around since 1876. We have values that are honesty, achievement, working hard. But we have two particular values that determine how we take a long-term view. One is long-term stable relationships, and the other is not being greedy. Those values are important, particularly when we think about the challenges in the current economy. When we look at long-term stable relationships, our stakeholders are taking a long-term view, for instance, when we're investing in the Superquinn business. Those values and a way of working really give support to our retailers in their local communities, knowing that they have a partner who is there for the long term. Thank you for listening.